The area of the Morbihan in the northwest of France is the ground zero of megalithic culture for the whole of Europe. The extraordinary concentration and scale of megalithic monuments is overwhelming, and their sudden appearance nearly 7,000 years ago defies any kind of unanimously agreed explanation. Which is why it's a red letter day, when a piece of research helps to shine even the smallest ray of light into the mystery of the standing stones and megalithic monuments of Brittany. Hi there, thanks for joining us. I'm Michael Bott.
I'm Rupert Soskin.
Published very recently, there is a new report on rescue excavations at the site called La Plasca in the town of Ploermel, very near the famous Karnak alignments, that claims to bring some clarity to the problem of putting reliable dates on the complex of thousands of huge megaliths in the area. The task we've set ourselves is to report on whether it actually does that or not, this report, and also why we're just a little bit excited about this report and what it makes available. That's about the size of it, and also to talk a bit more about Morbihan and all these megaliths in this area, because although individual sites within the complex are well known, like the Karnak Menek and the Grand Menet Brise and things like that, but when you appreciate how close they are all together in this area, it becomes a bit mind-boggling, and I want to take the opportunity to through this to dive a bit deeper into that.
Yes. Well, mind-boggling is an understatement, isn't it, really? I mean, the density of absurdly sized megaliths throughout Karnak and the region is bizarre, and it is enigmatic and mysterious, and nobody understands why. But at least now, thanks to this latest piece of research, we do have some actual dates to work with, which it doesn't make it any less mysterious, but at least it gives us a start point. I think that's a significant thing.
Well, here's the thing. You'd expect with so many sites, we'd have so many dates to work with, and the complexity of each monument's relationship to the next, and when things started, when it kicked off, when it stopped, all the rest of it, the chronology, in other words. But the reverse is true. The vast majority of the bits of excavation that were done in the area were done in the later 19th century, and of course got huge problems of documentation and recording of contexts for any organic materials that could be dated. So a lot of the possible datings have been lost. So where we've got suddenly a bit of dating, this is why we're excited, because it's a rarity. Being able to use this to plot a bit of chronology of the stone alignments and other things. It is, like I said, it's a red letter day.
It has to be said also that this was a rescue operation. It's not for the first time. In fact, not for the first time in the region. But the reason these excavations were done was because another industrial complex was going up. The site itself that we're talking about today is now underneath is underneath the retail park. Yes. So it does raise the question. They only had a very short time, 3 months. They had to excavate this.
Extraordinary.
And so staggering what they achieved in those 3 months. But also it really does make you wonder, well, what else is lost underneath this industrial park now? It's amazing. But thank goodness that they did manage to extract this data from it, because otherwise all this really groundbreaking news would have been completely lost. So, thank goodness for that.
Yeah. Ploermel is a small town. It is a couple of kilometres northwest of the alignment at Menek. And of course, there were no standing stones at the time of the excavation. The stones in this case, are ghost stones. Their only indication that there are any there is under the excavation that there are the foundation pits for substantial standing stones. But from the excavation as a whole, they managed to extract 49 radiocarbon dates. And it's actually, this is one of the largest dating sequences that there is in the whole of France.
It's extraordinary. Yeah.
Which is amazing, because out of that 3 months of excavation, blooming heck, they must have worked hard. There's a picture here that might amuse you, because the excavation was done in 2020. It was August, time of COVID, and the weather doesn't look to have been too good either. So hats off to
the glamour of archaeology in the field.
But alongside proper dates for this collection, this complex of standing stones, we've got also dates for prior monumentalism going on, or prior occupation, certainly. So it's not only the dating of the stones that helps to appreciate that, when the big stones started going up, but also gives us a gradual ramp into those dates, and it's the contemporaneousness of this site with other known sites in the area, not least of which are the burials, on Teviak and Edic, which we know from the Mesolithic coastal excavation, the shell middens on the coast there. But this wonderfully draws attention to the fact that the Mesolithic people, the hunter-gatherer, fisher people, were not just on the coast; they were inland as well. And the first instance, if you got the dates to hand, Rupert, of the first phase
of the Mesolithic settlement, it's the band of dates is 5699 BC to 5621. So we're talking about 7,500 years ago.
And the interesting thing is what at the base level, at this level, we've got an oval structure, like it's almost like a mini henge, isn't it?
Yes, it does have a surrounding ditch. Yes,
it does have a surrounding ditch, but also they think that alongside that they've found 3 monoliths. Small stones. They're not going. They're not being so bold as to call them. They're not being so bold as to call them standing stones.
They're not megaliths.
But on the other hand,
they are monoliths.
They are monoliths.
They're not megaliths. Yes,
well, they're not megaliths. Yeah. So, are we looking as we thought we were looking? In the burials on Edic and Teviak that seem to use for the first time stone slabs as a kind of monumental thing. Have we got here monumental representation of? So, although this is not a grave yet, this has been interpreted as a hut, but nevertheless honoured with small standing stones.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's intriguing, isn't it? Because the thing is that they are small. And so, I'm not arguing about the interpretation of monumentalism, but I have no clarity in my head whatsoever about what this does actually represent. No idea at all.
Yeah. And that's the thing, it's tantalizing in this area, because I'm going to reiterate it. This is the ground zero of megalithism in the whole of northwest Europe. And, pretty much anywhere in Europe, really. Yeah. This is where it all kicks off from. I mean, that's an avenue we could go down, but, there's a lot of work been done on that. And a lot of ink spilled over discussing where exactly, the megalithic culture spread from. It used to be thought it came across with the farmers from the east, but not anymore. This is where it starts.
No, it's certainly. I think it will remain an enigmatic thing. Of whilst we can say now with, pretty much for certain that this is ground zero. The exact ground zero is still very open to interpretation, is it? Because we do know that alignments...
In time or place?
Within parameters, both. That this is what they've excavated here. So this is the oldest evidence for this whole cultural shift. But it's the fact that we do have these... the very fancy stone burials on Edic and Teviak. And we know that sea level is significantly higher now than it was. So whilst we know that it's in this region, exactly where is something that I don't suppose we'll ever be able to, put a flag in the ground and say, yes, it started here.
And I suspect that it is lost in the interaction and changeover between the existing Mesolithic people, hunter-gatherers, and the incoming farmers. What happened there? Who influenced who, etc. Those are the questions that are trying to be answered. And this kind of excavation doesn't answer, but it kind of helps. It's more evidence of things going on contemporaneously that we know, that the Edic and Teviak wasn't a one-off as far as honouring things with stone. It was going on here at this site in the Mesolithic, just a bit inland. Yeah. 3 monoliths, and 3 monoliths and a hut. Actually, while we're talking about the early bit, it has been partially related in type and kind to a building, a structure that was found at Begerville, which is actually much earlier and it is on the coast. Well, it's on the coast now. I think it was on the coast then, where we investigated those midden, shell middens. I didn't know there was a structure that had been found there, but this
yes, you did, but you forgot.
Yes, I did, but I forgot. Yes. Yeah, that doesn't happen. Yeah. Anyway, that's the base level, which is exciting in its own right. Then above that, we've got a grave monument they discovered, which is a shade, in prehistoric terms, before we get the later standing stones going up. But this is a grave monument, a funerary monument, which is a stone kist. A quadrilangular dry stone kist.
And it should be reiterated that this kist is built directly over the top of the Mesolithic structure. So you've got whilst there is a significant gap in time, but it is still evidence that people have been here, and people are still using this spot. We don't know what happened in the interim, but it is directly on top of the Mesolithic structure.
Mm-hmm. So not only a kist which didn't have a capstone of any sort, but seems to have been covered with earth and turned into a mound. Whether it had a wooden top or something like that, we don't know. However, round about, very interesting this. We've got 46 monoliths, again, pretty small, but with their natural faces deliberately facing upward. It's as if these are, smallish granite blocks which have been taken from somewhere else and rearranged just south of this kist. And one can only, I say one, this is the conjecture from the paper, that it would have looked like the natural landscape anyway, because they've taken the trouble to take the natural face of the stone that they've excavated and place that natural face facing upwards at it, as it would have been in nature.
Yeah.
Really
intriguing.
is,
Yeah, because I mean, it's impossible to put yourself into the minds of people from thousands of years ago, obviously, but nevertheless, when you see something like this and you say, well, that's a decision. There's no accident here, because all the stones fit this pattern. So it was a deliberate decision to do that. The rationale, nobody knows, but nevertheless, it's a thing. It's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've got 46 of them, there's nothing random about that.
No.
Too many questions.
Other thing, I'm going to turn my headphones down a bit. The other thing that we've got to reiterate is that there's a 300-year gap between the previous Mesolithic structure and this. We're into the Neolithic now. We're into the early Neolithic with this. But apart from that, also, apart from the 46 monoliths with their natural surfaces, they found 6 pavements, what they call pavements. Not a slab pavement, but a pavement, or vaguely circular, made of smaller granite blocks, 4 of which they're interpreting as forming the basis for standing stones. So now we're getting serious as far as monumentalism is concerned. It's almost so tempting to interpret it as a kind of progression.
Yeah.
But that's dangerous. Nevertheless, we do have, the basis for 4 standing stones around this kist.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one here, because my initial reaction to reading this was, on what basis are you interpreting these pits as being the footings, for want of a better word, the bases for standing stones? And the reason that they're interpreting them this way is because not that far away, there are places where it is known that they were standing stones, and the ground was prepared exactly in this way to support those. So, this is not based on any kind of whimsy. It's but intriguing that this is another aspect of skills developing over time, that we're looking at these oldest stones of basically having a pit of stones underneath, so that the big stones can be kind of rested down into this nest of rubble, as opposed to, you come further into the Neolithic and people were digging deep pits to sink stones into so that they were that much more stable. This is this is the precursor to that. It's gravity that's holding these stones up, not the depth of the pits that they've been into which they've been sunk. So I thought that was a really significant aspect of the development of the culture.
Yeah. Have you got the dates for the kist in front of you there,
the
Rupert?
kist is 4791 to 4640. So call it 4600 BC, roughly 4650 BC.
Yeah. And also at this level, we've got a couple of cooking pits as well, what they're calling cooking pits.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, there's signs in fact, so the way these pits have been dug, from the excavations, it looks like you've got 3 distinct ways of preparing the ground. One of those is, as Michael said a minute ago, is the pavement for whatever that stood for. Then you've got the pit for the basis for the stones, and then you've got a slightly different structure again that they're reading as cooking pits, because there's signs of There's been burning in there. There's coal. There's charcoal, and also a lot. The stones in the cooking pits are much smaller than the stones that are as footings for the standing stones. So it's very clear that these are they're deliberately different. They're structurally different in whatever their function was. The interpretation is that they're cooking pits, and there is talk of some lipids were found. Those have not been analysed yet. They're actually doing that probably now. But yeah, that's an intriguing thing. That one of their other interpretations or possibilities was that because these cooking pits are so close to the standing stones, that it's even possible that they were lighting fires to illuminate the standing stones. I quite like that idea. But we don't.
That's jumping ahead a bit, because I'm still on the before the main event, if you see what I mean.
Before the main event.
Okay. Yes. That's an interesting thing we'll probably mention later on. But that's a shade before we get to the main event, which are the larger standing stones. And what they're saying are alignments and a few more cooking pits, sometimes in alignment with the standing stones. At this layer, all we've got coming new are standing stones. No more burials, nothing like that. And it is apparent that at this time, the previous kist, whoever was responsible for that would have been still visible in the landscape, and probably the stones associated with it. Maybe they got reused. Who knows? But we're talking about that kist just being a shade before these larger standing stones going up that we're talking about. And I can't remember the total area that the excavation did. It's quite a large area for such a small amount of time, but nevertheless, I expect these standing stones extended for quite a way either side, and this wouldn't have been all there are. If we know anything about the clusters of standing stones and the standing stone alignments and the serried rows of standing stones, they can cover huge areas. We can only assume that the alignments extend beyond the area of the excavation. That's almost a certainty. But again, what we've got here are the pits for standing stones. They weren't there when the excavations began, or they're not recorded anywhere alongside any other of the megalithic monuments in the area. So we've just got the foundations, the pits there, and they're big. The average diameter is 1.8 meters.
Yeah.
And you know what?
It's big stone.
I've been trying to, visualize this, that they've discovered. And there are, a couple of analogues in the area. It doesn't look, looking at the ground plan, that this is similar to the rather more organized serried rows of stones that you get at Menek and extending up the whole of the Karnak alignments, and further on up the road at Kurzaho, for example, which we know quite well. I mean, there are quite a few clusters of these in the area, but this doesn't look like that, where you've got rather more organised rows. To me, they look very similar to an extension of the Kurzaho alignments, which for us, when we visited last year, they go off into the woods there, and they're slightly more disorganized, although the eye can put them in a line, if you like, somewhere, but the variety of size of stone, the fact that they are big stones gives you a better idea of the possible scale that we're looking at this particular site here.
Well, 1.8 meters is a very big lump of rock. And it's frustrating that they're no longer in situ, because we can look at similar stones elsewhere in the in the region and extrapolate that maybe it was 10 foot tall or 3 meters tall, whatever. But again, don't know. It's frustrating. I tell you, I've got
film of us at Kurzaho, and looking at some of those standing stones that, contrary to what you'd expect, some of them actually taper towards the ground, and a lot of their weight is in their midriff or even up higher. Yeah. So a 1.8 meter foundation can support a flipping big stone. Yeah. I think there's an example in that set of stones in the film there.
They are remarkable. I have to say that one of the things they have talked about alignments in relation to these stones, and I have to say, from a personal point of view, I think it's a lot more accurate to say that they're associated. These pits are associated with the stones. I don't really look at them and see alignments. Do you?
No, there's not been a lot of care to put things in a line. We could interpret them as alignments if we like, but it's so sketchy when
I think so.
You can't put a ruler line through them and it hit the exact center each time. It's you just go, what were they up to? Were they trying to? They knew how to put things in lines, for goodness sakes, if they were really trying. So I don't know.
It didn't matter. Obviously, that wasn't the thing. Interesting.
Yeah. Anything more to say about the cooking pits or the fire pits or what have you? As you say, they seem to have recovered lipids and other things from.
I would be really interested to see what the lipids turn out to be, but no, I because the thing is, if they are cooking pits, then what the hell's going on? To have pits, because they're not. There's no consistency in how the pits are actually associated with their associated standing stones. There's no consistency there. They're close by, but they're not at a common distance. They're not a common size. So it's just intriguing. Is the standing stone performing another function, a really absolutely practical function, that maybe there's organic material, whether there's timber stuff around it that you could for example, and I'm only going off on one because it's all we can do, but if you had a big standing stone,
so glad.
and then you used that as a central support for a timber, almost like a teepee, that you just had timber posts that were resting on the and secured onto the central monolith, and then you had a cooking pit by the side of that. So I can see that being a practical way of using it. But if it is, if it's a standing stone in the way we've come to see them everywhere else, where it's ritually based in some way, even if it's a marketplace, whatever, it's a meeting place rather than something more domestic, put it that way.
And to be fair, the dating of the cooking pits themselves, they spread over time, don't they? I mean, it'd be really quite hard to tease them apart.
And again, the trouble with that, and where you have to have a huge amount of sympathy for the research team as well, is that if you've got a site that has been used over any lengthy period of time, then if you've got if you're dating charcoal then you don't know. It could be early, it could be late in the existence of of the actual inhabitation of the site. So it's very difficult, very difficult.
Another analogue for the whole site is probably the complex at Vieux Moulin, which is the one up near Saint-Just, apparently. They are extant standing stones and alignments up there. They have cooking pits associated with them, so maybe looking at Vieux Moulin in the light of this excavation may give a bit of leverage. I don't know. I'm sure there's further work to be done. That and the similarities have been drawn with these foundation pits to the foundation pits that existed at Ergras at the Locmariaca site, the Grand Menhir Brisé site, the other 18 megaliths that have been removed. The pits there are very similar to the pits here. Yeah.
Yes. Do you know what? And you bringing that up, it's another big frustration with so much megalithic stuff. In that, so you go over and look at Ergras and that whole complex, and you also have the Table de Marchand burial as well. And the thing is that they're separated in time by a hell of a lot, and so when you're looking at these crazy big standing stones at Ergras, absolutely enormous, and you think, at what point, did people started putting stones up, and one of the first things they think of doing is, do you know what? Let's put up something that is so ridiculously huge. Whoever thought that was a good idea, and why? Because the earliest ones are the biggest of all. They only got smaller after that.
Yeah, but the surprising thing is the Table des Marchands is not that far away from the establishment of the early monoliths. It's like the early monoliths went up and they suddenly decided it was a really bad idea because they were incorporating the decorated monoliths in the tombs themselves as capstones, and there isn't that much time for that to happen. For it to be them to go out of fit. Not go out of fashion, but for people to forget what they put them there. So they think, we could use that as something else. Something seems to have happened. It's really strange.
Yeah.
So, as we say, this thing, because these dates, getting dates for standing stones is so rare, and it's gold dust, a real opportunity to fine-tune the chronology of the alignments in the Karnak region and beyond. Does it bring anything else to the table for you when you look at the whole complex, when you look at the whole area and the things that have to be taken on board? The earlier tombs, the long mounds, the development into the passage graves, and megalithism itself.
Yeah, it is an intriguing thing, isn't it? Where you see certain things in the landscape that it does look as if you've got different cultural things going on at the same time. So where we've got the mounds, for example, and the megaliths that are, they're not separated by huge amounts of time in some cases, and I do wonder there that sometimes there's a danger. We look back at things in prehistory and we see them as enigmatic. But sometimes I think whilst we can't put ourselves in the minds of people from thousands of years ago, I do think that people are people. And we can look now, today, say the last century or so of human practices in terms of burials particularly, where we still cremate people, we still bury people, we don't have excarnation anymore, but some people go in very simple graves, some people, their ashes are scattered, some people, if they were rich and important people, we build enormous mausoleums to people. And so sometimes I think that where you can see, if you look at the way people have behaved in, that we know about, that sometimes it's just a matter of personal taste isn't the right word, but it's a matter of personal preference in how this particular thing is going to be treated, as opposed to we always prehistorically, we tend to look at things and try to make there's got to be a big reason for it being this way as opposed to that way, and I don't think it's always necessarily the case. But
whichever way it turns out, the story of the Morbihan area is very, very complex indeed, and I don't know if we'll ever really get a comprehensive teasing apart of the different elements enough so that we can get a big picture of who is responsible for what. But as these things come to light, it is so tantalizing, and bring on more discoveries. Bring them on. In the meantime, visiting the area is a must if you're into prehistory and megalithism and megaliths and standing stones, etc., because it's all very well us talking about them, but the experience of them is extraordinary. It's overwhelming when you think about all the stuff that was going on, this explosion of stuff. I mean, you could almost describe it as a revolution. This bit of research has enabled me, just off the top of my head as an exercise, I used these dates because I've been very wary of doing so before to try and put things in order. But I used these dates to construct an actual timeline around this. And what strikes me once you put this in with some kind of certainty is this straight line, dividing line between not so much megalithism and suddenly absolutely in your face, everywhere, standing stones, huge tombs, etc. I mean, explain that. That's what we're trying to do. Hope this helps. Guys, before we finish up, if you end up enjoying this video, please do leave a like and subscribe. And also, we can only run the channel and make the films we do through the help of folk who have donated to us, either by subscription through our Patreon campaign or through one-off donations at our Buy Me a Coffee page. Please do have a look at the links to either of those options down below before you go. Thanks very much indeed. Had to do that before we finished off.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Any other finishing thoughts? Me looking forward to what analyses they do on the lipids and the
I'm really looking forward to that.
And the DNA. Also looking forward to going back there in September, looking at these extraordinary things in a slightly new light as well.
I think there's still a couple of places left on the tour if any of you fancy joining us.
Indeed, I better leave a link to Rick's Archaeology channel down below. So if you're interested in joining us in September, do have a look. As I say, links down below. All right. Well, I think that's all we've got for you for the time being. We've barely scraped the surface really of this, but I hope. I was really glad to have this paper as an opportunity to just do a bit of a dive in from a rather oblique angle, but nevertheless, there it is.
Yes.
That's all from me.
Yeah, and from me. And we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thanks for watching, folks. Bye-bye for now. There we go. We knew more than we thought we knew. And we've been talking for 40 minutes?
40 minutes. How did that happen?
What are we like?